morning. Welcome to the CASMET Health Walk Hike. Today we're going to be traversing the Wingfield Rainforest via what is normally known as the Peter Manning Trail. Alright? As we go along, I'll attempt to give you guys a little idea of some of the things in the rainforest and so on. What we will start with right now is the area where we are. This is Wingfield Estate. Wingfield Estate, as you can see, was established somewhere around 1625, which is pretty early because the first settlement in St. Kitts was in 1623. The village below, Old Road, thank you. The village below, which is called Old Road, is actually the first settlement in St. Kitts, of course, by the British. Because, you know, we had people here before. Yeah. So no, we're not getting into an argument right now. Yeah. So the first settlement was in 1623 in the village just below there, Old Road. The British came, led by a guy called Sir Thomas Warner. Sir Thomas Warner was charged with the responsibility of establishing British colonies in the West Indies. And the first one was in St. Kitts. Subsequently, I think it was in maybe 1624, so some French people were damaged in a storm on their ship, and they came by St. Kitts and landed. They were also allowed to come in. Let a little traffic through, please. They were allowed in. The British allowed them in, and actually they combined. As you know, St. Kitts was divided between the French and the English eventually. And it is from St. Kitts that both the English and the French islands were subsequently colonized. Okay? So St. Kitts has been called the mother colony of the West Indies as a result of that. Just a little extra history for those, especially Americans who are around here. Thomas Warner became friends with a guy by the name of Samuel Jefferson. And in fact, Samuel Jefferson was one of the first owners of this estate area. Okay? I think he subsequently sold it to an Englishman by the name of the Earl of Romney, which is why it is now called Romney Manor. Okay? The Carabel Boutique area is called Romney Manor. It was bought by the Earl of Romney. He bought it from Samuel Jefferson. As it turns out, as I said, he was the good friend of Sir Thomas Warner. And in fact, in the nearby village of Middle Island, there are two tombs next to each other. Sir Thomas Warner and Samuel Jefferson, right next to each other. As it turns out, Samuel Jefferson is the great-great-great-grandfather of the third president of the United States, Thomas Jefferson. Okay, so you see the little American history here. So you could say Thomas Jefferson has his roots right here in St. Kitts. All right. Now Wingfield is the only estate in St. Kitts where sugar cane was not ground by the power of wind. Most of the estates had windmills, and they used that to grind the cane. There were one or two estates, especially in the earlier years, that used animal power also, where there was like a turntable and they have cattle going around it and using that to grind the cane. But Wingfield is the only one that used water power. As a result, as we go along here, you see there's that structure there with the arches. That's actually an aqueduct which brought water from the nearby Wingfield River into the estate, and there was a big wheel at the end of that structure. When the water fell on it, it turned the wheel, and that created the grinding force for the sugar in this estate, the only one by water power. This estate also grew cotton, also grew tobacco, and of course to sustain itself, there were also lots of other crops, okay? Especially food crops. The estate has a lot of interesting ruins. In that structure over there, you can actually see the boiling pots are still there with the furnaces underneath them. I encourage you one day to just come back and spend some time walking through Wingfield Estate. It is properly labeled. If you look around, you see lots of little labels. Read those labels and you see what each thing is, and get a sense for the beauty of the historical structure that we have here. All right? Now, as we go into Rainforest, please bear in mind, we don't want us to leave anything other than perhaps our footprints. All right? So if you have any snacks, when you use them, your wrappers and paper, etc., put them back in your bags or in your pockets. Your bottles, put them back in your bags or your pockets. Leave nothing in the rainforest. You want to keep it as pristine as possible. Okay? I hope everyone has registered. There's a registration desk. I hope you have registered. If you have registered on the way out, please register on the way back so that you can avail of the facility. Right? Okay, so as we go along, I will give you an idea of what we're doing and how we're doing it. So, we're on. Look as though we can have a nice little cooling... That's called forest conditioning. Trees, that's the local name for the sandbox tree. Notice the prickles on the trunk. Right? Those are some very sharp and very hard prickles. Now, it's amazing that these trees, especially when we do our ashes, okay? There's a big one behind you there. You can see a big one over there. And you can see the prickles way up there. They can come pretty big. It's amazing that whenever you're doing a downhill run, and you need to stop at the bottom, that one of those are always in the perfect spot to stop you. Alright? So if you find yourself needing a tree to stop you, always check to make sure it's not one of those. Or you'll get it quite impaled. Alright? So that's something to look out for whenever you're in the rainforest. Right? They're called sandbox. They produce a seed.
One of them is female.
On the
I
ground,
just don't remember exactly
which sometimes
spiky, a male or a female. It's like the same
artisans here would carve out and create souvenirs looking like a little dolphin that they make earrings and so out of. Nice little ornaments. Alright? Yeah, so it was the rain establishing here. There were citrus orchards, there were mango orchards, and right here you can see the remnants of this area, which was an avocado orchard. Because all of these trees you see right here are avocado trees. Okay? If you come during the bearing season, they're full of avocados. Only problem is the monkeys get first choice. And that actually relates to only choice, because they can eat them before they are near ripe. And so by the time you come, they're all gone. Alright, but all of these right here are avocados. Okay, so even this one right over here, is an avocado tree. Okay, alright. You guys in a bit to show you, point out something. Notice those palm trees there. Look at the trunk of it, you'll see it's like unlike any palm tree you've probably ever seen. Long prickles that can be as long as 3 to 4 inches. Okay, very, very sharp. And so it actually prevents climbers from going up it, right? So that's one tree the monkeys don't climb. Anybody can tell me what tree it is? Ah, thank you. Somebody knows it. That's a mocha tree, right? Right? Yeah, I know where it is. Just down the bottom of your road. Yeah, I know it. This produces a fruit which, when we were kids, we used to love eating. All the kids used to crave for mocha, right? But nowadays, if you ask a kid about mocha, they have no clue what you're talking about. Okay? All
smells awful, tastes nice.
Huh?
Smells awful, tastes nice.
Yeah, that's not the one that really smells awful. It smells okay. It's the stinking toe you're talking about.
Oh.
That smells awful, right? There's another fruit called stinking toe, which has a big hard fruit. We might pass some in here. I'll point them out if we do. It has a powdery seed that smells, just as the name says, like stinking toe. But it's the sweetest thing you want to taste. A sweet powder. It tastes really good. Okay? So yeah, I just want to point out the maca tree here, and the fact that it's a fruit that has literally disappeared from our diets in St. Kitts. But it used to be something that was a big treat all the time. Right? Something. You'll see a lot of these. As a matter of fact, we've passed quite a few, but I've just chosen this one because it's a little more prominent than many. This structure right here, the dark bulge right there. Anybody knows what that is? Right? Termite's nest. Alright? Of course, in the rainforest, there's lots of wood. and lots of dead wood. And the termites, they do a lot of cleanup work. All right? They eat the dead wood. They're probably one of the few creatures that have digestive enzymes that can digest wood. All right? And in fact, even the nest there is made of wood. When they chew the wood up, mix it with their saliva, that creates a binder, and they make this. It's very porous, okay? And in there is full of termites. And if you notice coming out of it, and you'll see it all in the rainforest, you'll see these tracks going up the trees. Look at that one, you see tracks going up there? Those are termite tracks. They're actually hollow. If you break them, okay? If it's an active one, you will see termites traveling in there. They travel under that tunnel to protect them from the creatures that would normally prey on them, like lizards and birds. All right? So they use that to hide as they travel up and down the tree. The nest, as I say, is porous and brittle, and you can just do that and puncture them. This one here, yes, it's a live nest. So right here I can see the termites starting to pour out. Now, having disturbed this, they will eventually, during the course of today, they will get some new saliva and wood, and they will mend that back. All right? But if anybody wants to look, you could look and you see the termites coming out of it. All right? Lots of these are in the rainforest, and they keep, you see like dead ends of the wood and so on, and bark, they keep consuming that. Okay? All right, let's go again.
They said Wingfield Forest, but this is Wingfield Mountain Forest. That's how that's that.
New York, Miami.
All right, we're overlooking the Winfield Valley. As you know, this area is considered a watershed because of its value for supplying water. It's one of the most productive rivers in the island. But the main river itself is made up of many confluences, is the right word, or tributaries, right? So if you look here, you can see several valleys all converging in this particular area to create that confluence, all right? And so it's many different little streams and rivers that join in to make the Wingfield River and continue down. We have a tree here. I think most of you know this tree. Everybody know this tree? Gum tree, we call it. Or another name, Gumbo, or some people actually call it the tourist tree. Anybody familiar with it, why they call it tourist tree? Because it turns red and peels in the sun. Sorry guys. I didn't make it up, you know.
But this is the tree that they take those sap to burn.
This sap is flammable.
Fragrant, like
not this one for the fragrance. There's another one in the rainforest that has a very fragrant sap and very flammable. But this one produces a gluey sap, which as kids we used to use it to stick our books when they tore, and when you're doing projects that needed glue. This is where we got it from. Yeah, and make kites and so on.
right.
Alright, so this is a nice breezy spot. This is called Peter Manning's Ridge. Alright, overlooking. I don't even know. Right?
Okay, fair enough.
And as a matter of fact, we don't even know why it's
This is a board.
But of course it's caught much further up. Yeah. But it's caught much further up where they ensure that there is no contamination. And then just the purification. But there's a tree over there. This is the tree where it's coming from. It's called trumpet bush. Now, why it's called that is because the old folks used to consider it a signal of bad weather. So the leaves normally show like this. But when the winds pick up and it starts getting a little stormy, the leaves turn up and you see white. So you'll find when you're down on the low levels and you look up into the hills, all of a sudden you'll see these trees just go white, and then they stay there for a little while, they disappear. Right? Then they go white again and disappear. Huh? Yeah, it's called trumpet bush. So they were saying that was signaling or trumpeting the coming of a storm. Right? So the old people used to use that as a signal of bad weather. However, it was also a very useful bush, because they used to use it for many ailments: stomachache, period cramps, colds, and that sort of thing. They boil this, and you know, all the old people used to swear by this stuff. So you find whenever you're heading into the rainforest, somebody, an old lady would hear you going to the rainforest. Oh, please bring back some trumpet bush. Is what they're talking about.
But the green one, right?
No,
no?
Dry one? Fresh dry one.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so like this one is fairly fresh. This is a little older, right? But a fresh dry one, and they boil it. Well, the proper way to do it is not to boil it, but to boil the water and then steep it in the boiled water. All right? Trumpet bush, panacea for many ills. Matter of fact, I had this type of tree here is has what we call buttress roots. Now, the soils in most of these rainforests are very shallow, right? This is just volcanic stone covered with a very thin layer of soil. So most of the trees can't put roots down deep. So what they have to do is they have to spread the roots out in the thin soil to get stability so they don't fall over, right? And this is a very good example of what you call a buttress root, okay? Which goes out from the tree to stabilize it. Now, in some, I looked at the documentary the other day, and there's some chimpanzees in Africa that uses trees like these for signaling, right? And it's clever because these trees with a good powerful hit. If I had a stick, I would show you better because I don't want to damage my hand. But for example, you see this buttress here. If, for example, I did this, you'd be surprised. Low, what's the word? Low note sounds travel further in the rainforest than high note sounds. And so when they hit this, it makes a loud resounding sound. Okay? You know, chimpanzees are very powerful. When they give this a good whack, they can create sound. You know, that sort of thing. And they make noises like that to signal the others in the forest. Especially when it comes to things like attack and defense, they use that kind of signal. And I understand that even some native Africans would use sticks, probably precursor to drums, to do the same thing on these roots, right? And make a loud sound with, of course, a particular pattern indicated a certain message. Right? Of course, these other things you see hanging down, you see them all through the rainforest. These are called lianas. All right? These are called lianas. Some can come pretty thick. This is still a thin one, and they're usually very strong. You can swing on some of them. I don't know if this one is strong enough, but the old dam. This used to be where the dam did earlier, but they've now moved it much higher up into the mountains because they try to catch it where the water goes through as little of a flow process to get contaminated. Because especially now that we have a higher percentage of monkeys in the forest and everything, you know, they will defecate in the water and different things and so on and so on. So to keep it much cleaner where it begins, the dam is higher up. But this used to be one of the old dams. Alright, you can see it from right here. So the water collected on the inside over there, and then it had like sluice gates, so that if it's overflowing they would let it out and that sort of thing. Or during times when you have heavy rains and the water gets muddy and so on, they will let that flow out. And then when it calms down, then they will shut it back up and let the water collect again. You know? But that used to be the old dam. This big tree you see here is called a saman tree. S-A-M-A-N. It's one of those trees that sprawl. When you go up to Caribel Batik, as you enter, this is that big sprawl. That's a typical example of one. That's a beautiful example of one. And they get pretty old. The one at Caribel is said to be over 400 years old. This one is probably close to that or maybe even older. But because it's not in the spotlight, people probably don't notice it. But I think there are two trees here. A main one here and one coming off the side. And notice how far the branches can sprawl, right? And if you see all of these are all branches that are broken off from it from time to time. Okay? This one is pretty old. But what I really want to show you here is that there's another plant. This one here. See this one here? With a lot of roots? This is called a strangler fig, right? These trees, they actually start from above. The seed at the top. Trees like the seman tree support a lot of life. If you look at it, you can see a lot of plants growing on it. There are mosses that have dried up because it's the dry season. You can see a lot of plants all on the branches all over. Those are called epiphytes. They use this plant as a host. They live on it, all right? But this one here, it starts at the top and it comes down and it actually tries to encase the old plant. And in many cases would kill the plant and then it takes over. All right, it's called the strangler fig. There's a very good example on the outside too, but this is one. It's not doing a lot of strangling yet, but I'll show you, if anybody interested, I can show you one that actually killed the tree outside there.
After 400 years, but you got to die anyway, you know?
But this is a hard tree, to kill. You see the trunk of the other tree, and you can see the dead branches of the tree that you killed. And now the tree itself is flourishing on its own, right? So it's now taken over completely, all right? That's a great example of the strangler fig. All right, notice how it has encased the other trunk, all right, and killed it. As a matter of fact, I think that there seems to be just a little fragment of it, of the old tree still exists. A few leaves still there, but essentially most of it is dead. Right? So that's a good example of the strangler fig. Okay, we're back in. You see where we are.
Percy, it's been really interesting.
Right. I just tell everybody, like how Kishan say, let's bang him.